Sorry. So we have 29 people registered today.
Great.
Which is great.
No, you guys are just a day program, right?
Correct.
And you would think a lot of the kids would have already had guardianship by the time they get to you, right?
So a lot have guardianship. What we're running into is that there are folks that like parents don't have a backup guardian and elderly parents who pass away, and then they all of a sudden like guardianship is gone. So we've run into that a few times. So our families are really interested. Like
wanting to listen to this if they mostly have guardianship.
Yeah, so a lot have guardianship or looking for like what the alternatives are, or how do I prepare if I have like an elderly parent, like what should I be putting another person on as guardian? I think people don't plan.
But that's like one question of my whole, I have a whole presentation on guardianship, how to get it. It sounds like they don't really need that.
Well, so we do have other people that are joining as well that I think will be good. So it's like the Stoughton Public Schools have some people that they're sending. So I do think that there will be people on here that'll be interested in hearing the whole thing.
Okay. Now, did you see my screen? No.
Yes. Yeah, I can see it.
Can you see me?
I can't see you.
So you can see both my screen, my PowerPoint, and my face.
Yes.
Perfect. Because I only
How
see
is Billy?
I only see my screen. So now is it moving? Did it move?
It did.
Okay, we're good then. He's good. He's very good. He's
good.
Up and down. We had a little rough summer, but then we tiny bit increased the meds, and he's been much better.
Okay.
So I need a little bump up. Yeah.
Where is he at?
He's going to a day program in Ashland run by Advocates Inc.
Yeah.
And he lives in a group home, a private group home we created in Framingham, which is rare, but can happen.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
If I didn't say hi, Karen, thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, Rob, nice to meet you, not in person.
I know, but not through words only. So
yeah, exactly. What's your role, Rob?
So I'm the Director of Quality Assurance and Training.
Okay.
That's my little tie-in.
So you train the staff in addition to helping parents learn things.
Correct. And it's definitely not the only trainer on site. I think all the directors here, we all have our niches and things that we contribute. Certainly, I do a lot more of the coordinating part of it.
Okay. How big are you guys?
So we serve about 200 individuals every day.
Wow. Yeah. Have you always been called Grow, Sarah?
Yes. Yep. So we have a really pretty big CBDS program that serves about 120 to 130 people each day. Day hab, supported employment, and then we have respite.
Billy is in a CBDS. That's what he's doing.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, it's good. They do a good job over there at Advocates. I'm happy with them. I don't know if you ever run into them.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know them well. Yeah.
And previous lives, but yes.
Yes. Rob and I were both at DDS for several years.
Well, I think that's how I know you, right, Sarah? Isn't that how I know you?
So Charles River from back in the day. Yeah.
That was the day. So we moved from Charles River only because Billy got into that private group home, and it was a little too far. Because we always liked Charles River. And Charles River is similar to the whole program is similar, probably similar to yours. The CBDS is probably similar. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad he's doing well.
Thanks. Yeah.
Awesome.
What's your job now, Sarah?
I'm the executive director at Grow.
I knew you when. You're the big boss.
Right?
That's
I
awesome.
was all of like 22 back in the day running.
That's right. Do you know Anne Marie Boswell? Do you know Anne Marie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, she's creating that big housing thing. Do you know that? Charles River Heights going to serve, well, it's going to house 86 units, and 30 autistic people will be able to live there. So she's just
great.
She's phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, they've done a lot up there.
Yeah.
People should be popping in. They all got reminders this morning with their links. So.
Yeah, did Sarah tell you that we had almost 30 people signed up?
Yeah, that's great.
It is absolutely wonderful. It always speaks to the need, right?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like they might have specific questions, so maybe, you know, I'm not going to take that long. We won't take a full hour.
Perfectly fine. Yeah,
Sure.
whenever you're done. But yeah, anytime you have for questions, that was certainly, I'm sure, would be appreciated.
I think,
And I put this in some of the emails. I think a lot of our parents have already gone through and done the guardianship,
I
you know,
know.
for folks where it makes sense. But unfortunately, time catches up with everyone. So a lot of our families, you know, are getting to that place where they're thinking about sort of what happens next.
I have
So,
very
Yeah.
bad news for them. I have very bad news. You have to start all over.
oh,
I know.
really?
Ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
So, you know, that clinical team report requires 3 signatures, and it's not easy
Mhm.
to get when you're older, when you're out of school,
Right.
to find
No.
a social worker and a psychologist. It's
Mhm. Yeah, because we've run into that a few times where like the guardian has passed away.
sure. Or someone
Yeah.
like me, I need to appoint my kids, but you know, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Oh, here's people joining.
Are you going to record it?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just going to give it another minute because people are popping in. Maybe we'll give 1 minute or two, and then I can keep letting people in as we go along. But we'll be respectful of folks' time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, we had almost 30 people registered. So I'm assuming people will be jumping in. All right, well, why don't we get started, and then I'll just keep letting people in as they come in. So I want to thank folks for coming today. This is training for guardianship in Massachusetts, and today we are joined by Karen Mariscal. So thank you very much for joining us and presenting today. I do want folks to know that we are recording, so if you do have specific questions, you can put them in the chat, but please know that this is being recorded. So Karen, I'm going to pass it along to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Mariscal. I have a 33-year-old son who is profoundly autistic, and he went to the day program Charles River Center for a while and then moved over to Advocates, Inc. in Ashland, but he's in a CBDS program, and we are his guardian. We went through that process, you know, over a decade ago. And I'm a special needs lawyer. That what I do is not the education part, but the estate plan, special needs trust, and guardianship. Because as I'll explain, you have to go to court to become your child's guardian. And a lot of you, I think, are already guardians, so you know all about that. But I'm going to run through the process anyway. And I'm going to share I guess you have my slide. This is my son, Billy, here. So as you may know, when a child turns 18, they become emancipated under the law. So it doesn't matter what they're functioning or what they're doing or what they're up to. They are their own person. They have to make their own decisions unless you go to court and become your child's guardian. So it's kind of a big deal to take away sort of someone's rights to make decisions. So the court has to understand that this is actually necessary in this situation. So a guardian will be in charge of the person, in charge of their housing, where they go to school, everything to do with their medical, which is usually a lot of why the parents come to get guardianship is the medical. And they can't contract when marriage is considered a contract. So they can't get married without the guardian's consent, that kind of thing. And when you go to your IEP meeting, the child has to sign it themselves if you're not the guardian. So the first question is, does my child need a guardian? Because there's some very clear cases like my son who's nonverbal. Obviously, he needs a guardian because he can't make his own decisions. He doesn't even understand what you're asking him, my son. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where they clearly don't need a guardian. They are making their own decisions, maybe not always wise ones. All kids at 18 aren't always wise, but they totally have the capacity to make their own decisions. But the harder part is the kids in the middle that have some capacity, but you just don't really think that they can have the capacity to, for example, if they have a broken leg, will they agree to have it set? Or will they just say no? Or if they need to go to school, they agree to go to school, they'd say no. So you have to work with your own doctors or clinicians and talk about it with your teachers to see if you think this kid needs a guardian or not. And if we have people here that want to talk about that in their own case, we can discuss it because often you want to discuss it with a lawyer as well. So the alternative guardianship, okay, really it's having a healthcare proxy and a power of attorney. That's the real alternative. If they have the capacity to understand that they're saying, I want this person to make my medical decisions, I want this person to be in charge of my money, and they sign that on their own free will, that's the alternative. And you don't, I have this slide for supported decision making, which is a big thing people are talking about nationwide, a sort of an alternative to guardianship that's less onerous. The idea is that you have a team that helps you make decisions and it's all documented. So you turn to your team when you have a question about what to do about your health or your education or whatever. So right now in Massachusetts, this is not codified. We have a bill in the State House to get this done, and then it will become like something you can really do in Massachusetts. The doctors will understand it. There'll be a statute for it. But right now, I don't recommend it. None of us do because people don't know what you're talking about. So I think at this point, it's either doing the guardianship or having them sign a healthcare proxy and power of attorney. But I have the website here, supporteddecisionmaking.org, if you want to look into it more. So as I mentioned, if you want to be the guardian for your child, you have to go to the probate court. And it's really not a big deal, but it's kind of a process, right? So I'm going to go through the process a little bit later. So as I mentioned, what does a guardian do? They make decisions about the medical care, their education, where they will live, what the child will do every day, what day program they will attend, or whether they'll go to, self-direction, how they'll handle that. And there's a little bit of financial control in the guardian, small amounts of money. In most cases, we almost never recommend that you get a conservator for your child. In our state, we have a guardian for the person and a conservator for their money. But we don't want to have a conservator for our kids because we want our kids' money to be in trust. If they have money, we want it to either be in an ABLE account, which is an account run by Fidelity, that is not countable as the kid's money for government benefits, and it grows tax-free. So you want to put the money into an ABLE account for them, or you want to put it into a trust of some sort. And then there's no need for a conservator because they have no money. The trust owns the money, or ABLE accounts has the money. So a lot of people ask me about limited guardianship. Oh, I need guardianship, but I need limited guardianship. So that is really kind of a term of art that doesn't apply to our kids. What in our case, what we do is we get a general guardianship and we limit it on the decree. So there's a page that the court gives us, the limitations with boxes to check. So it says, for example, they can clean their own room. Yes, we always check that one. They can vote. They can be left alone. They can pick their own friends. All these things that you check, you decide what you want checked on that page. Then it's attached to the decree. And the court just goes along with what we decide. So if we want to check this box and not that, the court never even asks me about it. They just, okay, and they do what we want. So that's how we limit our guardianship. Limited guardianship is the exact same process as a full guardianship. But in our state, it's really meant for people that just want one little piece of guardianship, which is really not how we operate when we're turning 18. Okay, so I'm going to go through, I don't know, some people already have the guardianship, but I'm going to go through the process. In order to become a guardian, we have to file a petition with the probate court saying we need to have guardianship. And at the same time that we file that petition, we have to file a piece of paper from a clinician that shows, in fact, we do need guardianship, because it's not going to be up to us. It's not going to be up to your lawyer. It's going to be up to your clinician who knows whether this is necessary. And there's two different forms that we could use for the clinicians. One is called a medical certificate, and one's called a clinical team report. So I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. One or the other has to be filed with the petition, or the court will not accept the case. So as your first thing, if you want to file a guardianship, is to get this piece of paper signed up. Then you file the petition with it. Then you file a bond, which is really just it's without sureties. It doesn't cost anything. It just tells the court that you're going to have jurisdiction over you if anything goes wrong. And then the court issues something called a citation, which is a piece of paper which says, "Hear ye, hear ye. This person is seeking guardianship over that person. If you want to object to this, you have an X date to do it." Okay? So once we get the citation, it's our job to serve it, which means give it to people. And in our family's cases, it's handing by hand to our kid, by a disinterested person, not you, somebody like a neighbor or a teacher, somebody not related, has to hand it to our kid. They can throw it on the ground. I don't care what they do with it. We have to tell the court that we in fact handed it to them. And then we have to serve it on any siblings, put it in the mail to any siblings, and another parent if the parent both didn't apply for guardianship. And then we have to serve DDS. Then once we do all that, and when I say serve, I mean put it in the mail. Once we do all that, we attest that we did that to the court and file that piece of paper attesting that we did all that. And then we can have a hearing. The court will not have a hearing unless they see that everybody's been served properly. Then we call for a hearing date. Once we have that citation fully served up and submitted to the court, and the time to object has expired, then we can call for a hearing date. Recently, Middlesex has been issuing hearing dates without us calling, which has been great. But in general, whatever court you're in, you might have to call the court to get the hearing date. Once you have the hearing date, you go to court, and it's a rubber stamp. It's a done deal, assuming your paperwork is in order, assuming you have the right clinician report that shows that this person needs guardianship, and you've served it, the petition. You get the decree right there, then and there. And in our cases, we don't have any objectors. If we have an objection from our kid, then we shouldn't do it. We don't want to have a big fight in court with our child about being guardian. We need to work that out first, whether you need to use your kid's therapist or maybe wait a while. You don't have to file right at 18. So if there's any objection from your child, I wouldn't take the case. The only time we have objections usually is with an ex-spouse who wants to be co-guardian and the spouses don't get along. Sometimes we have problems with that. Okay, so let's talk about whether we use a clinical team report or a medical certificate. A clinical team report is for somebody who has an intellectual disability. So that means 70 or below IQ, roughly. If they have a 75, you might want to still use a clinical team report. But if legally, it's basically 70 or below. Everybody else uses a medical certificate. So in the old days, it used to be intellectually disabled or mentally ill, right? And now we have autism, where a lot of people are not intellectually disabled, but still need guardianship. So a lot of those people, they use a medical certificate. They don't have an intellectual disability. So the difference between the two is that the clinical team report requires 3 signatures. Let me just see if I have a, no. It requires 3 signatures, a medical doctor, a psychologist, and a social worker. The medical certificate only requires 1 signature, a doctor or a psychologist. The harder part about the medical certificate is you have to get it updated before your hearing, because it's considered a part of mental illness that might change, like some mental illness comes and goes. So the court wants to know that this is still the situation right before the hearing. The clinical team report is about an intellectual disability that doesn't change. You don't ever need to update it. It has to be 180 days fresh if it's a clinical team report. In other words, 6 months fresh. If it's a medical certificate, it has to be signed and an examination has to be within 30 days of you filing for the case. And if it's a medical certificate and you're going to hearing, you have to get it updated. Right, you can hand it in that day of the hearing, but it has to be updated within 30 days of the hearing. Should I stop and see if anybody has any questions so far?
So there's one in the chat says, can 2 people be listed as guardian?
Yes, yes. In fact,
sorry, 1 family related, 1 not related.
Yes. We recommend that you have co-guardians if you can. I'm going to get into the problem with AFC and PCAs where you can't be guardian in a minute. But in general, putting that aside, it's best if both you and your husband, your spouse, are guardians. And now you might want to think about you and a child, a sibling, because unfortunately, as I will discuss, you can't name an alternate to your guardianship. What happens is when you can no longer do it, the person has to go back to court. Whoever's going to do it has to go back to court. So in my case, I have adult boys. They are not currently named as co-guardians, but I wish they were, because once I pass away, then they would automatically be co-guardian without having to go back to court. So in the situation where you have adult children, siblings that are well over 18, I wouldn't recommend it for a really young person. It would be good to name them as a co-guardian. But you can name whoever you want. I could be your kid's guardian. It doesn't have to be somebody related. Sometimes we can get 3 people named as guardian. So you, your spouse, and a kid. The courts hate that, but they usually do it if you ask them to. So I wouldn't try for more than 3, but 3 can work too. All right, so I want to talk about this adult family care wrinkle. Adult family care is a program where you get paid by Mass Health to take care of your own kid. And it's a wonderful program. It's not hard to administer. It's an annual stipend that is tax-free. So it requires your kid to need help with their activities of daily living, basically their hands-on stuff like getting ready, showering, shampooing, shaving, tying shoes, brushing teeth. This kind of thing is how you really qualify. There's also some that can qualify because of all the cueing they need. But the more hands-on help you need, you're going to get the higher level, which is basically $19,000 or $20,000 a year. The easier kids, maybe $9,000 or $10,000 a year from Mass Health. You get this after you apply for SSI first. SSI is Supplemental Security Income. You apply for that after the kid turns 18. Then the Mass Health card comes in the mail, whether you ask for it or not. It's an automatic. You do not have to apply for Mass Health. It comes with SSI. Once you have that Mass Health card, you can try to enroll yourself in the AFC program. You need to call a provider, such as Advocates or Charles River Anchor. A lot of these places are providers for AFC, and they come interview you to see if you qualify. Your kid qualifies based on their needs. So why am I telling you all this? Because you can't get that money if you're the guardian. So it's ridiculous, and especially for divorced families. They cannot qualify for AFC because they have to be the guardian. Both do, or they give up their rights as parents, but yet they can't have the AFC money. Or you can't be a PCA either, but you can hire a PCA to come in and work for you like a babysitter and use that because they're not the guardian. So that's one workaround. So I just like to mention this because you want to think about that before you apply. If you think your child will qualify for AFC and they're going to be living with you, they're not going to be going to a residential placement or anywhere else, they're going to be living with you because you can't get the money if they're not there living with you, then I would recommend that you not apply for guardianship. You just have your spouse do it, or vice versa. One of you applies for it, and the other one is the AFC caregiver. And the courts are used to this, and we do it all the time. So do you need to hire a lawyer to do this process? No. The forms are all online. And I have here Google Mass Probate Court Guardianship Forms, and you'll see them. But I think you really need somebody to sort of hold your hand through it, and the court clerks can help you. So it's a pain, it's a process. And, you know, if you want to do it yourself, just know that you're going to have to put some time into it and be a little patient, because what you'll have to do is go to court and try to file your papers and talk to the clerk, and they'll tell you to go back another day because you did it wrong, and you just have to figure it out. But this virtual registry that we've gotten since COVID, another benefit of COVID, is now we can go and Zoom with our clerks to talk to them about our troubles. So you go Google, let's say, Middlesex Probate Court Virtual Registry. Google that, hit the button, sit there and wait for them to show up, and they come and ask you what they can do to help you. And you talk to them about it, tell them your situation, and they'll help you. Also, there are lawyer for the day volunteer attorneys at the various probate courts, but usually at the most once a week. So I would ask with the virtual registry, when is your lawyer of the day show up? And go with that day to the court and sit down with them, and they'll help you fill it out or help you do what you need to do. So I haven't talked about Rogers guardianships yet, but for those are very complicated, and I think you do need a lawyer for those, at least at first, to first get the guardianship. Okay, so the ongoing reporting requirements have become much more burdensome lately because our wonderful state got a grant to set up a whole office to pester our parents about these reports. It is driving me crazy. So they go through the various dockets and send you letters if you didn't send in your report on time. We never used to have anybody paying attention to this, and now we do. So it's a guardian care plan, and it's meant to tell the court how the kid is doing and what's happening, where are they living, and how are they, okay? So you have to file this within 60 days of receiving your decree. Same form, it's a form from the court, and the same form you file every year annually on the date that you got that decree, okay? So it's a care plan is online. You have to use their report, fill it out. And the reporting period that they ask right up front, what is the reporting period, is always in the past, okay? You're reporting on what happened last year, not what's going to happen this year, you expect. So your reporting period for your first year would be the date you got the decree till a year later, the date you fill it out. And then you put it in the mail to your court. All right, so make sure I put the docket number on it so that it gets in the right file. And if they do send you these letters, please don't worry about it. No one's going to take your guardianship away. It's permanent. Just do the best you can. Okay, you were late filing a report. Just file it when you can. File it meaning put it in the mail. Okay. Now, does anybody have any questions about all that before I get into Rogers?
Is there a place that a family could check? Like, I don't know, like what if they don't turn in that report annually? Does the guardianship terminate? Is there a place that can be checked for the families if they're not sure?
Very important to know that it's not going to terminate. I don't want people getting upset about this, but it's masscourts.org all our cases are online. So you're going to have to fiddle around to figure out how to get to your case. You have to go find your court It's a probate court, whatever it is, Suffolk probate. Then you have to put in the right names and everything, and your case will come up, and you will see what's been filed, and the care plan will show up on that if they got it in there. So that's a good idea to check on that. Don't worry if you're late. Don't, it used to be we could forget for a whole year and no one cared, but those days are over. It's not meant for us. It's not meant for parents. It's meant for professionals who are, doing the professionals trying to keep them on the job instead of, we know that parents are doing the best they can. So nobody cares what we say in these reports. Although the exception would be if they're all of a sudden taking antipsychotic meds, they will look for that. They will check for that. And then we need a Rogers. So any other questions, Rob, before I go on? Okay. So Rogers is a more specialized type of guardianships, which some of our kids need because they're taking antipsychotic medications. It's usually Abilify or Risperdal. There's a few others. So that by our courts is considered a more dangerous med. And the case called Rogers created this whole problem of we have to have a special guardianship. So when your child is taking antipsychotic meds, you need to put that in your petition, and then the court assigns your kid their own lawyer. It's paid for by the court, not by you. That lawyer, we call him Rogers counsel, has to go and meet with your kid and determine if they're, in their opinion, it's appropriate that they should be on these meds and a guardianship itself is appropriate, and report back to the court. So usually they file either they file representations to the court in writing, or they show up at your hearing and confirm to the judge what's going on. All right. It's harder, Roger. I mean, we have to deal with the Rogers Council. We have to file findings of law and conclusions of law and findings of fact. We have to file a draft decree, motions. So it's a little harder. That's why I said I think you need a lawyer for the Rogers. And then assuming your Rogers counsel agrees, which they should, unless something's up, So I've had a case recently where they required me to get a independent medical examination for the kid to make sure that their meds were right. So that might happen. Then the court goes ahead and grants it and issues a treatment plan, which says what the meds the kid can take during that year. And it only lasts a year, this treatment plan. And you want to have it arrange so that in case your kid needs more or less, you don't have to go back to court. So, 5 to 10 milligrams or whatever you want to put for a daily dosage. And then you want to have some alternative meds listed if you could think your kid might, at the young ages, we're still kind of fiddling with what works. So list the alternatives as well. So then in a year goes by, you have to do the treatment plan again. They have to have a new treatment plan, which requires a new affidavit from your doctor and a motion to extend, and you have to do your Rogers Monitor report in addition to your care plan and your draft treatment plan. So it's about 6 different documents you have to file, but you don't have to go to court again. So hopefully after maybe the first or second round of the annual, you can do it yourself because you know the forms and you know how to do it, because it's still kind of involved, but you just submit it all in time before the year is up, and it should be taken care of what we call administratively with no hearing, all right, until the next year.
There, a question on the Rogers. If the medication is not on the medication treatment plan, so say the doctor wants to change the medication completely to a different med, do you have to go back and redo this?
We're only talking antipsychotics, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yes, you do. So, okay. Sarah, I've never had anybody not change their meds because they're waiting for the court, right?
Right.
I shouldn't be telling you this, but nobody waits for the court. But you need to go back and get that done. All right. So, we have to do what's right for our kids. But we also have to follow the law. So you would need a new treatment plan. So do your best to list whatever you think might happen during the year, and so you don't have to go back. And then sometimes we can just wait till the annual review, and instead of filing a motion to extend the Rogers, we motion to amend. It's because we're having new meds, So that's all I had to say. I'm happy to take well, I think some of you might be interested in what do you do when you're getting older and you need a new guardian. And that's even my case, if I want to have my kids be the guardian instead of me after a while. Unfortunately, you have to start all over. You have to have a new clinical team report, which is very hard to get when you're that age and you don't have access to a social worker or psychologist, but that is what you need. I have tried to file motions to avoid doing that because of this, and they always get denied. So you do need to do it. There's a place, Trusted Clinical Supports.com, Trusted Clinical Supports in Newton, that has a social worker and a psychologist on staff. You have to pay for it, but at least it's there and they can do that part for you. And then you can just use Trusted Clinical Supports. You can just use them for the psychologist and the social worker. For those of you that are still in school, you want to try to get your school people to do it. But again, some of these schools are refusing lately. They say, well, we're not going to do that anymore for you. You're going to have to go find your own way, which is so annoying. Because usually you want whoever did your neuropsych to fill out the clinical team report. Only one person fills it out. Everybody, the other two just sign on. And you do not need a fresh neuropsych. It can be 40 years old. That's fine, because we're not submitting the neuropsych. We're just submitting this clinical team report, and the intellectual disability doesn't change really. So you don't need to go get a new one of those.
We just had a question that just popped up. It says, what are good options when you don't have any additional younger family? Appoint a lawyer or a friend.
I really hate lawyers as guardians. It's just they'll check on your kid once a year kind of thing. They aren't the same as somebody that cares about your kid. So if you can avoid a professional guardian, please do. So yeah, I mean, you have a niece or nephew, friend is good, but if you have to, you can appoint Kimberly Kelly is pretty good. If you need a professional, she's a lawyer that does it and tries hard. But in my world, a lot of the people are all set. By the time we're old, maybe they're in a residential placement with DDS. Hopefully they are, or in somewhere where we don't have all these decisions to make anymore. And the guardianship ends when you die, just because the guardian is not there. That's what ends it. So the kids go without a guardian. So, or if they need one, the DDS goes and files it again, that'll be a professional. So that's not optimal, but that's sort of what happens a lot of times. Any other questions?
Yeah. Does anybody want to throw anything else in the chat, question-wise? Rob did put a couple of links, so you guys can feel free to click on those. Oh, we got somebody typing a question.
Mhm.
And Kim, actually, while she's typing, is there do you have any suggestions maybe on the timing? Like if someone is doing this on the front end, you need to get these assessments, get people to sign off on things. You also need to go through the court process. Do you sort of start both tracks simultaneously? Do you go and get all the medical signed and completed? Like, I don't know what the turnaround time is once you file that initial bid at the court. Like, so could you speak to just sort of the timing of how that might play out?
You can't have your hearing till you're 18, at least.
Yep.
And there's always a gap between when you get your hearing, between your kid's birthday and the 18th birthday and getting the decree of the hearing, because they won't hear it before 18, and they usually won't hear it within a few weeks of 18 either. So don't be excited if there's a gap. The courts, I mean, the doctors understand it, the teachers understand it. You just say it's in the works. But you have to, so in Middlesex, you can't file your paperwork more than 6 weeks before the 18th birthday. They will reject it. Other courts like Norfolk, you can file 6 months before and they don't care. All right. But if you're in Middlesex, you really have to be careful when you get it all signed up because, like I said, for a medical certificate, it has to be 30 days fresh. So if you get it all signed up for several months before the birthday and you file it, they reject it. Now you have to do it again. So be aware of how early you can file it. And like I said, the clinical team report has to be 6 months fresh. So you have a little bit more leeway there of getting the work. But you have to do that first before you even draft the petition, because you have to have that to file the petition. So that's your number one job, is to get that signed up, either medical certificate or the clinical team report.
Thank you. And then go ahead, Sarah.
So 2 more questions popped up. So first one is, so if your kid lives at home and you're aging, should you look into a group home?
Oh, well, yeah. This is the big question for all of us, right? What should we do to get our kids situated? But you have to do something. It's so upsetting to our kids when we pass away and we're not there anymore, and to have them move at that point is not. You want to be there to help them get situated and help the staff understand your kids and help them know that they're going to be okay. So you don't want to wait till you're infirm either. So I guess 80 would be the right time to say, okay, now something has to be done here. Talk to your DDS service coordinator about what options you have, and think about other private options and get them situated. It's hard. It's hard when we're older and we're so used to living with our kids, and that's sort of what we do. That's our family. We don't want to not live with our kid anymore. Our kid doesn't want to leave, but you really need to think of their best interests.
And I will just note too, is that it can be really difficult to get funding for residential placement. So those are discussions you want to have with DDS early and before it's an emergency, because it can take a couple of years before you can find a placement.
First of all, even to get prioritized, it takes a while. You have to be priority 1 to get a placement. And then to find the right place, you're supposed to find it very quickly, because it's supposed to be within, 2 months you need them to move out, but sometimes it hasn't worked that way. But you need to start the process, and you need to sound desperate, and you need to explain the situation in the harshest terms, because they're not going to put you at the top of the pile if they think you're doing fine. And so you have to sort of change your mindset of how you talk when you're with them. If you tell people you're fine in general, you want to say, no, this cannot go on. And if you have any kind of health concerns, you need to talk about that. I have a friend who just had a heart problem, and she got her kid into residential placement. Okay. If you're single, you're divorced, or your spouse, that gets you up higher in the line. We had a woman show up at our Special Olympics swim meet with a walker. That week that she showed up like that was when she got a residential placement for her kid. So you need to start thinking about that and seeing if you can get a placement with DDS. It's we don't really want that, but in reality, it's the most secure place our kids could be.
Okay, the next question is, I can't think of any family member who would take over for me, now 80, as a guardian for my nephew, not Rogers. Not clear how I find someone. And then she went on to say he lives with family that also has 2 daughters through a program, a community living program.
Well, you might just have to use a professional if there's no one else. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying try to avoid it if you can. So I'm available if you want to email me about any other questions. Sarah has my email, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then she says, how do I find a professional?
I'll try Googling it. Like I said, I'm going to look up Kimberly Kelly. I know she's Kimberly is kind of busy, but Kimberly Kelly, attorney, put that in there. She ought to be able to refer you to somebody else if she can't do it.
Then I'm sure DDS can probably also help
yeah.
with the process. Are there options to buy into group homes or buy a home and have it turned into a group home?
So there's an agency called Mainstay that does a pretty good job with making group homes that are private pay, that are not, we're now not talking about DDS group homes. We're talking about private pay group homes. Mainstay is a good one. Till does it as well, TILL Inc. So I would contact them. Support specialized housing in Brookline is good if you want to actually buy your unit. But if you want to use a DDS group home, you can, if you are prioritized, so the state's going to pay for it, you can buy your home, a home, and rent it to DDS. Some people do that. Why do they do that? Because they have a little bit more control on what's going on in the house. Not a lot. They're still not allowed to pick their roommates or anything, but you have a little bit more. You're aware. You're over there more. It's a little, you can pick a place that's closer to your home, so you're nearby. And so you can, if you have a lot of money, that you can buy a house and rent it back. That's one option.
Yeah. And if you are going to do that, definitely speak to DDS before you get into buying the house or renting or anything, because there are regulations around like where the house can be and certain like exits and those type of things. So you want to make sure that you're working with them before you get into any agreements.
Or, and not just DDS, but you should find a provider that wants to support it, because they need to staff it. They need to help you, figure out who's going to live there and do all the work. So the provider, like Human Services, Associate for Human Services does it up in Concord a lot. They'll help staff or support a house that you buy, but you need to talk to them and say, do you have anybody waiting for a bed that we could use that could help put this house together, right? So you're probably going to need at least 4 people living there. All DDS paid for, hopefully, all prioritized. The easier way to have your kid move out is to rent an apartment, a 2-bedroom, and have someone else live there. The harder way is to try to build a group home with 3 other families who all have different ideas about what it should be like, and all the kids are different and don't always get along, and the staffing is harder. So and the one apartment, 2-bedroom apartment is less of a community. So people don't like doing that, but it's easier.
Great. Karen, thank you so much. This is, I think, been very helpful. And we will be sending this out to folks, so you'll be able to rewatch the recording, and we'll also send out Karen's contact information if anybody is interested and needs assistance.
Thank you, Sarah and Rob and everybody.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Have a good one, Karen. Thank you.
Bye.